Hello, my name's Steve and you're listening to the Go Footballing Podcast. This is the podcast that talks all about grassroots football. Whether you are a coach, a player, parent or referee, sit tight, you're in the right place. So on the lineup this week, we are going to be doing old school versus new school. I'm going to call it, Has the Game Gone? Now, I'm sure this is probably going to be a controversial episode, so if you do want to email in, you do want to get in touch, then do that by just emailing in to me at gofootballpod@gmail.com. Let's not wait any longer, let's get into it. So, one of the sayings in football, not just in grassroots football, but all of football, absolutely everywhere, is exactly the same, which is, has the game gone? Well, saying that we hear a lot, isn't it, as well? Game's gone, game's gone, game's gone. You know, we hear that all the time for a number of different things, namely around challenges, the physicality of the game. So, honestly, I think that not just for grassroots football, for football all the way through, you're either old school or you're new school, which is why I kind of labelled the episode Old School versus New School. However, I do think there's some people that probably fit right in the middle of there too, and probably see the best of both. And it's probably because they've seen both sides of it, really. They've probably seen the sides of it when it was very physical and a very different game. And they've probably seen, you know, the newer side of it now too, where it's probably more technical, I would say now. There's a lot more discipline involved with things now too. So, that's why we're going to be naming it in this one. So you might be one of those people that keep saying, you know, watching things, seeing little clips, seeing how referees sometimes react to certain things and saying, oh, the game's gone, the game's gone, the game's gone. You might be one of those people. You might be on the other side of it, which is just saying, game's moved on. It's moved on. You've not moved on. You've moved on. So this is my little analogy, if you like, and I've not run it past anyone yet, so it might not go with everyone. But for everyone who's got a driving license, okay, or on the roads, okay, so let's just say that you're old school. You've been driving the same amount of time that some people said they've been playing football. Let's just say someone's been driving 20 years, 30 years, a longer time anyway, you know, a bit longer. I'd say that about 25 years ago, something like that. It's got to be something close to that, isn't it? When the theory test came in, I've never searched it up, but yeah, it's got to be around that kind of time where they started introducing theory tests in. Before that, for anyone who wasn't around, and that includes me too, but they used to just ask you to read a number plate and hold 3 or 4 signs up at the end of your practical test, and that was your theory over, really. So, but yeah, let's just go back to that as a bit of an analogy then. So driving. So you think of all these people that have been driving for quite a while. How much has the roads changed and the signs changed, and the other side of it where now you're looking way more at, you know, things like braking distance and things like that, you know, braking and thinking distances, you know, wasn't a thing before, you know, and people can often say, I can drive, I know how to drive, I can get around this, I can do this, I can do that. Whereas you'd probably find that if you were to do a lot of tests on people that have, you know, that have done the test and they did it quite a while ago, and you were to go and ask them to do a theory test, they'd probably fail it quite badly, you know. Same as they'd probably fail a practical test now as well, you know, probably fail one of those too. You know, they probably wouldn't remember what a national speed limit sign was. They probably wouldn't remember, you know, what certain signs are on the roads. They probably wouldn't remember part of the highway code that they would have to remember. So, you know, just look at my analogy. Let's just look at it that we've got some people that are maybe old school that are just like, nah, I can get from A to B. I know how to drive. I've been doing it 30 years. I know how to drive. I wouldn't need to do a retest. I wouldn't need to do a refresher. I can tell you anything about driving, but then, you know, sometimes don't know all of the road signs or anything like that. And then on the other side of it, you've got all the new drivers that are probably very, very good on paper too, you know, not just good drivers. And I'm not saying that anyone's a good or bad driver, by the way, it's just an analogy. But, you know, we'll know braking distances at 70 miles an hour is like 96 metres, for example. Or, you know, if you're driving at 30 miles an hour, your braking time plus your thinking time is like 34, I think it is. You know, that people will know those kind of things too, you know. So, you know, driving, it's evolved, hasn't it? And that's a kind of little bit like what's happened with football, really. You know, the game has evolved quite a lot. I think that there's a lot of things that people still get mixed up with football. And this is not just, the normal on-watcher. I think that there's a lot of people that have been in football for a long time. I'm not going to call you dinosaurs or anything like that. But you still probably got the same views as when you first started, I suppose. And not really always thought about all of the new rules and regulations and everything that came on. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I was coaching, we were at a game for one of the teams that I actually coach, and the referee went to put a drop ball down and asked two lads to come over. Bear in mind, these were like under 10s, I think they were. It must have been under 10s. Two under 10s to come up. And this was this season, by the way. So, since September, got two lads to come over. He was going to do a drop ball and drop the ball right between their feet and just let them kick it out for each other. And it's only because I was shouting on, ref, that's not how you do a drop ball anymore. But it was like, I've been refereeing for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. And I was thinking, you clearly don't. Either that or you just not followed the rules all the way through. So it does happen. Quite a few different things have changed. But I mean, let's just have a quick look at what some of the old school coaches, got a lot of good traits on it as well. I mean, for me, I played in this era too. So I played football in this era. Started doing my coaching probably as it was coming out of this, more into the more modern game. But yeah, they used to focus massively on being physical. So you'd hear a lot of calls, and you still hear these calls out on grassroots games now of, let them know where you are, or, it's so very much about strength and toughness and endurance, way more than looking at things like technical abilities. I mean, the biggest change probably being the goalkeepers from the old game. Obviously, goalkeepers, they used to be the biggest ones that were on the pitch, or the ones that couldn't run, and they were used to be the ones that could kick the ball the furthest. That was it. You were a goalkeeper. All of a sudden, they used to play very direct. I think that there was less structure in coaching. It was very much just very basic drills, I would say, that used to get back in the day. And I think that was, not just in grassroots football, all the way through. I think it was probably the same. But I do think there was a lot more tougher discipline, back from some of the old school coaches, and the coaches that are still around now that are still, very much around being totally disciplined as well, but being a bit more hardcore, if you like. I think that some of the times they don't always believe in the whole sports science. I don't think that I think they often think that fitness and running laps is probably better, as opposed to things like interval training and endurance drills and those kind of things that you would do, working on fitness of just run and do laps, and sometimes you also see it. Sometimes I see it on my social media feed as well. It's just what do I do if my team don't listen? Give them laps. I mean, they might not just be listening because, they're not interested in what's going on, or maybe it's that there's something else happening, but, just give them laps or something like that. Very old school kind of mentality. But I do think that sometimes you'll get an old school coach and an old school ref, and because they're from the same kind of era, everything goes absolutely perfect for them. They have the same understanding of what a foul is, what a yellow card is. They have the same understanding as to how much force can be used, all of those things. I suppose the reason why this episode was really called Games Gone is, there's the amount of challenges now that we're going in that are being encouraged by some people from some era and some people from another. I think the game really has moved on. And, do we think that the game has evolved outside of that kind of pure physical, pure, brawn kind of era that football was maybe played in? I mean, look at the bad tackle that was made at the weekend, with Everton and Liverpool as well. I mean, clear sending off, didn't get sent off though as well, but that was a horrendous challenge, and I've seen a lot of people saying no, it's a brilliant challenge. But if you go down and slow that down as well, his foot's so high, it's leg breaking. He's gone straight through the player. And I think there's a lot of rules that were in place that were there before that are no longer there, and there's a lot of rules that are there now that weren't there before. And I think there is a bit of a grey area between people's understanding. I think the main thing that I generally see, being both a coach and also a ref and a parent, is I see, trying to see it from all sides really, which is trying to have that balance between the physical side and also maybe the technical side, and especially with how fouls are going now and what people kind of see. I suppose a couple of actual, really things that really kind of always get me when I'm playing a game or when I'm refereeing or when I'm coaching is the lack of understanding that some people have for the game, especially for the game that it is now. You know, the amount of times that I have to tell people when I'm refereeing, when a keeper's got the one hand on the ball, for them to say they didn't have two hands on the ball. You know, he's not under control. The ball's moving. He can take it out of his hands if he wants to. If we want to knock it out of his hands, we can. You know, if we want to interfere whilst he's releasing the ball, we can. We're allowed to do that. Well, you can't. You know, and sometimes people just say, like, to me, like, oh, the game's gone soft. Like, what do you mean he's got to have one hand on the ball? Like, yeah, the keeper only needs one hand on the ball now for him to have control of the ball. Like that's a rule. It's been there for a long time. You've not kept up with it, you know. Like I just mentioned earlier on in the episode too as well, you know, like things like drop balls. Like, again, it's not, the rules have changed. We've tried to make it more better for the teams. But the one that gets everyone really is this. And that is, got the ball, ref, got the ball. Okay, so, oh gosh, this is going to get controversial. If I get any emails come in, I'm guaranteed they're going to be about this part now, which is, winning the ball means virtually nothing about a challenge. Virtually nothing. Okay. Now, some people are going to go, no, I win the ball or I get something on the ball. It's not a foul. It's not the rules, okay? It's just not the rules. If you follow through and you clout a player, if you absolutely barge through a player to win the ball and you touch the ball, it's still going to be a foul. If you slide through and your feet are off the floor and your studs are up, and you take the ball and then you take a player afterwards, it's a foul. It's always going to be that. You know, winning the ball, it's only part of a part of the decision-making process that a referee will go through of whether something is a foul or not. Same as, you know, force that's used in contact. You know, obviously, you know, we look at the careless, we look at reckless, and we also look at excessive force. You know, I remember there was a few weeks ago I gave a foul for a player because he absolutely wiped a lad out. Now, the difference in size for these two lads was massive. So, you know, did the big lad that literally flattened the smaller lad in the game, I might have mentioned it actually, it was about 5 weeks ago, this one, absolutely flattened him. Like I'm talking like he went, you know, if he could have been on the next pitch, this lad. He could have flown away like that. You know, to be honest, he weighed about as much as a paper bag, and the other lad was more like a sack of potatoes, to be honest. But yeah, absolutely ran through the lad, wiped him out. And he went, ref, I know, why is that a foul? And I'm like, do you not think the force that you used to knock him all the way over there was a bit excessive? There was a bit of excessive force there, you know. Do you think that it was careless at minimum? Not really. I didn't use half my force that I needed. Okay. Just because you didn't need to use half your force doesn't mean that it's not a foul because you've wiped the player out. The player has been wiped out, you know, and it's very, very difficult to get this. And I appreciate that for coaches and for players especially, really, because players, you know, they kind of throw everything into it all the time. And, you know, the really competitive ones, they throw everything into it all the time, which is why the official's there to officiate and make sure that if there is a challenge that's been made, the right amount of force has been used for it. And, you know, it's going to be very subjective to what they think. You always got to remember that referees are only going to see things one time from one angle in real time. So they're only going to get to see it once, you know. And sometimes, you know, referees go back and they will go, you know what, I probably did get that as wrong as a mistake. Yeah, it probably was a mistake, but that's how I saw it right at that moment. So, you know, has the game gone soft, though? So has the game gone soft? I'm going to put my neck on the line here and say, no, I don't think it has gone soft. I don't think it has at all. I think that what we've got now is we've got a game that is probably looking towards protecting players for a little bit longer. We don't want players to get injured. Many of them have got to go to school the next day. We don't want injured players. Do we want it to be physical and challenging for the players? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Absolutely, we do want that. But do we want players going to be injured? And do we want, as adults, grown-ups, shouting at kids and telling them, you know, get closer, let him know where you are, go through him, all of those kind of things? Do we want all of that? Probably not. I think if you're putting someone out and they're getting injured and that player is getting really badly injured from foul after foul after foul from a player, then we need to protect those players as well, really, as officials. And sometimes it might be accumulative fouls. It could be one of those things that we look at if it's the same persistent player there. But I personally do not think that the game's gone soft. Same, I don't think the game's gone either. I don't think it's gone. I think that even all the new changes that they're making in 26, 27 and 27, 28, I think that they're all going to have the benefits to the game. And don't forget, we're all waiting for 11-a-side, really. So we're all waiting for under 13s, under 14s, under 15s, and onwards, really. That's what we're really waiting for. But, get more touches, get more playing there. If you want it to be more physical as well, probably put less players in the game, less players in a smaller area as well. It's definitely going to be more physical, but it's also going to be way more technical too. So I think that with a lot of the new coaches, I think they work way more on technical skills, like playing out from the back. I think they play way more small-sided games and a bit more versatility in positions and coaching on that side kind of things. But I also think they probably look a little bit more on well-being, sports science, injury prevention, some technical flexibilities, maybe respect-based coaching too. So rather than just shouting at lads, they'll talk, or girls, they'll talk to their players in a more respectful way about what they'd like, probably a little bit more positive. Probably not quite as, I wouldn't say nice, but let's just say that the old school, I think, are probably a little bit more direct, more about strength, physical, endurance as well, simple play, direct, they'll be looking at things like long balls, standing players up, really tough discipline, mental resilience, they'll be looking for that in their team too. I don't think there's a good or bad in these two, by the way, I don't think the game's gone. I don't think it's been lost. I think that people generally think that the game's gone soft because it lacks the physical side of it, where it's new school kind of coaches, they believe more that the game's evolved for the better, with less people getting injured and less people getting hurt. Got to be a happy medium there, but, we're going to end it there this week. I think that the best thing to do really for you guys, though, is to just email in. Just get me on gofootballpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think, whether you think the game's gone soft, whether or not you think that the game is absolutely great at the moment or it was better back in the day. Email in, let us know, and I'll do a little special on this one if I get enough emails. If I do get enough emails in, I'll definitely do a little special, and I'll let you know what the results are. So until next time, thanks very much, enjoy your games, and speak to you soon.